Hello and welcome to our weekly author chats on IG Live. I am excited today because we are going to be talking with Aditi Wardhan Singh, who is a good friend of mine and someone I've worked with and admired for a long time. And she is going to be talking to us about her books, her best-selling books. Here's some of them here. Sparkles of Joy, which talks about different celebrations. She also has ones that talk about bullying and body positivity, race. And so she's going to be get on here and talk to us about her book specifically, but also about publishing process. I know a lot of you are interested in maybe publishing books yourselves and what are the different options. So we'll talk to her about what her experience was and any advice that she has. And then we're going to be back to our regular time next week. This is kind of unusual time for us. Normally we're Thursdays at 3 o'clock Eastern. So we had to shift it a little bit today. Hello, there she is. So make sure next time you can join us at 3 o'clock on Thursday. And Aditi, while she gets on, I can tell you she also has books for adults. There you are. Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you doing?
I am doing well.
Good. Thanks for being on with us. We were kind of joking that this is probably, I think, on all of the channels, because I help on social media for several, that we've had a chat on all of them. Even my book club on Facebook, we've
Yes,
talked, because
yes.
we have so much going on, so many cool projects, that it's fun to get to
Oh,
talk to you.
I should say that it is you that is so amazing that you
Uh,
support me on all the channels that you also work on, which is amazing.
well,
So I should appreciate that.
well, thank you for that. But for those, because some people who are watching now may not be familiar with you, will you give an introduction to yourself and to your books?
Yes. Hello, everyone. I am Aditi, Raising World Children, as I say. I founded and I'm principal author at the platform, which is a collaborative online and in-print publication. We focus on diverse books. I myself have so far written non-fiction, fiction, and children's books. Children's books, which are my favorites.
Oh, really? Is that right?
uh, Yes, I do enjoy them a lot because children don't judge as much as adults do, I feel.
That's probably true.
They are much more forgiving.
Yeah. Although they can also be very honest with it as also.
Well, I think these days with the social media, I think let's give everyone credit. Everyone's very honest.
Oh, that's true.
So how have you been?
Good. I was mentioning some of your books I was showing some of them that we have that
Oh,
talk about. One of the things I
wonderful.
really appreciate about your books is that you tackle really
Thank
big
you.
issues, and you don't, what do I say? You don't talk down to kids, but you also want to give them the facts. It's such a different approach than I think a lot of them, because talking about the one that addresses race, you really go into the science of, well, why do we have different colors, as well as
Yeah,
addressing the emotional aspect of
that's
it.
right. Yeah.
So maybe you could tell us, what was the inspiration for you to start writing these books, and why? How did you choose to write books on this topic?
So every book that I have so far written are somewhere inspired by incidents in my life or those around me. They made me pause, made me think. And when you say I don't talk down to kids, or I was never the mom who went, oh, go, go, go. I never did that as a mom.
Mhm.
So I honestly feel that children today, especially in the world that we live in, are way ahead of the times when we were kids.
Mm.
So I think when I say that the all the books I design, I would say, are strategized to make sure that the cultural aspect is in par with the science as far as possible, and as is the social aspect, because all my books tend to try to cater to the fact that we need to deal with mindfulness in multiple aspects of our lives. So that's what I hope to do. So when I'm writing each book, whether it be the fiction or non-fiction, the fiction and non-fiction are short paragraphs and very concise and very very easily digestible, because a lot of people complain that they're too small,
Right.
but I make them that way so that maybe those adults who say, oh, we don't have time to read, they have that moment of mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
And the children's books are a little bit longer, because there are those children now who read beyond their age,
Mm-hmm.
and who think beyond their age. So these books help the younger kids understand these topics in a very simple and scientific manner as well. So the inspiration is from the how our skin sparkles is from my son's how my son experienced that moment where he was pointed out in class. He was the only brown child in his preschool. And when I mentioned it to all my friends, all their kids had experienced one such moment, because each one was in a such a situation. uh, Smaller Tall is inspired by my daughter experiencing comments about her size. She recently, again, unfortunately, just a couple of days ago, had the same experience again, where kids were like, oh, shorty, and they were pointing at her and everything. It was very upsetting. So I wanted these books to be available for children everywhere. Sparkles of Joy is because my son and daughter love having friends over for festivities, for celebrations. And I'm glad that they are inclusive, because they want to share their culture with their friends. And I'm hoping, because I don't see a lot of that happening other ways, that we are not invited to Christmas and all that, and I'm hoping that that changes, and this book helps people see that when kids celebrate together, these conversations come out, that hi, we celebrate like this, and it's wonderful. It's very enriching.
Yes, and if you haven't seen it, it's really neat because it really models how those kind of conversations happen, because it's all these kids coming together and sharing about their different holidays, and there's no judgment, but they're finding a lot of like, what's the same, what's different. Oh, you like fireworks? Oh, we do. We have a lot of cool food too, and and then just this really beautiful sharing that happens. And I'm curious, what do you think, kind of your own perspective, because I know your background, you're a third culture kid where your parents were from one culture, you grew up in a different one, and then you came to another one here in the US and are raising kids who, I think, wasn't it you that said like your kids aren't half Indian and half American, they're both. They're completely.
Yes.
So what kind
I am the author of those words.
Yes. And for those that, if you haven't gone to the Raising World Children social media, you should really check it out, because there's a lot of just kind of, like you say, those little moments of mindfulness for parents of things that we think about when our kids experience bullying, when they ask these big questions that we're not sure how to answer. So it's a really great resource. But I was wondering, so because of your background, that, well, I was going to say it was unique, but maybe not, because I think there are more and more people who are kind of going through this. But how do you think you brought that perspective into writing your books that might be different than other books that we might pick up on the shelf?
So an example would be today, when I have started a Thursday Culture Day, which is where I take an aspect of Indian or Hindu culture and I talk about it in terms of yesterday and today. So a lot of people kind of Instagram, most people are enjoying it, they're loving it, but Facebook, a lot of people are having very strong reactions, because they were made to do this thing. I was never made to. As a third culture child, for me it was something I did to talk about it. It's about touching feet, why Hindus touch feet and why and when we do it. So I wanted to talk about that. And so they were made to by their in-laws, or and some people had back problems, so a lot of people are getting very angry, why are you talking about this and things like that. But for me it's a wonderfully enriching experience, because as a third culture child, you are not made to do things. Your parents tell you, hey, if you do this, it's nice, and we do it because we enjoy it. Because I still remember everyone whose feet I would touch, they always get this wonderful smile, because of course it's very touching when someone touches your feet out of respect. That being said, I apologize to everyone, because I feel sorry that people are made to do things blindly, and that is something a lot of people perspective they don't have. So even the non-fiction books and the fiction books for adults I've written, that is where my perspective as a third culture child comes out much more clearly, because I have that experience of looking at things from an outsider's
Yeah.
perspective. A lot of people today are experiencing it now. I experienced it growing up.
Right.
So I have always questioned things, and I have always been like, okay, so why are we doing this? And my mom would always have an answer. Whether right or wrong is a different one, because like you will see in that post, like she would say, oh, it'll help you lose weight. What's the harm in touching someone's feet? So, but then as I grew up, I researched, because I love Indian mythology.
Mm-hmm.
It's very close to me, and I love interpreting it because it has a lot of interpretations to it.
Mm-hmm.
But again, as a third culture child, I had an option of interpreting it my way. I didn't have grandparents at home to explain it to me. I didn't have anyone telling me, oh, you need to do this tradition. Whatever traditions I have in my home today are ones I have chosen to bring into my home.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of people have very strong positive or negative reactions per their experiences.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where I think I'm different.
Yeah, I think you really, because like you said, you almost have that insider outsider perspective, because
Yeah.
most of us, if you grow up in a culture, you don't even know that there are other ways of doing things. You don't even question it. You don't realize that you have the option not to do it.
Yeah.
And I want to switch gears a little bit, because just looking at the time, because I want to be
Yes.
respectful of your time, but I'm also really curious, because one thing I think we haven't talked as much about when I've interviewed you elsewhere is about the actual publishing process. And feel
Yes.
free to mention, because I know you do like coaching for other authors and
Yes.
editing, but with all the different options that are available, because we've talked about that on this channel before, about, you know, if you're an author and you want to publish, what are the different options and the pros and cons. So what route did you choose to publish your books, and why did you choose that?
I chose to self-publish my books and start my own indie publishing stream, I would say, is because I feel a lot of the stories being told by traditional publishing companies are still, I wouldn't say traditional. They are a little bit more, they have an idea of what a multicultural or diverse story is supposed to be like, whereas in the truth of the matter, a diverse story can be anything. The book we have published with Deneen Carew recently is a beautiful story about how a girl experiences something in school, and then she helps other kids who are struggling in different ways. Now, if this was a traditional published book, it would have a certain way that it is written.
Mm-hmm.
But it's with the way that we have written it, or whether the author has chosen to write it, and I helped her edit it. And I loved the fact that the story is not just about one protagonist. It's about this girl who gets empowered, and then she chooses to change the path of others.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel that is, and in self-publishing, I have all the control. Like I can, I get more profits. It's all dependent on how much work I can put in.
Right.
The work is the same, whether you do traditional publishing or you do self-publishing. The amount of work you put in is going to be the same, but the amount of control and the profits you get are completely dependent on again what you put in, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, of course, with self-publishing, the truth of the matter is you're 80% marketer, 20% storyteller. In traditional publishing, I guess if you were successful, which is a long way off, you can be full-time storyteller and just leave the rest to the others.
Right. Right. I think one thing that we talked about is that a lot of people don't know that even if you do a traditional publisher, you still a lot of times, or maybe a small prize, a lot of times you still have to do a lot of the marketing yourself. Unless, like you said, you're one of the really big names, which are
Yes.
a handful of people, but you still
Yes.
have to do a lot of the marketing.
Yes, you do have to do marketing, and even if you have a marketing team behind you, you still have to stand for pictures, and you have to post about it, and you have to tell people about it, because at the end of the day, it's your baby. When I do self-publishing coaching, as you mentioned earlier, and Deneen is very sweet, but she has a little bit difficult time. online, but you have to find whatever works for you and you have to do it, because this is not just a story, it is your voice, and the only person who can stand by your voice the most is you.
Mm.
So that's something that everyone has to do.
Do you have any advice for somebody who is getting, say, who has, especially like you said, people who are telling stories that maybe aren't mainstream, aren't the traditional stories, and maybe they're thinking about self-publishing? What advice would you give to them in addition to what you've talked about with the social media?
Yeah, I would say that a lot of people tend to focus on the do's and what everyone else is doing. That's the biggest downfall I've seen of, especially the world we're living in right now, because self-publishing is so easy
Right.
comparatively. Everyone just follows. You see someone successful and like, hey, they're doing that, and that'll work for us.
Mm-hmm.
And that is not the case. You need to find your own path. You need to find what works for your book, because every book is unique and has a different way that it is telling a story, and thus it has a different way that it needs to be marketed, and you need to figure that out and what works for your life also. It's not just about writing the story. Another so I would say this is a don't. I think I can say three don'ts, because
Okay.
I'm very pro saying don'ts. Don't do this. So don't fall into the trap of, okay, I'll take this course and I'll follow the course exactly and I'll make money. That does not happen. No matter how many tricks and tips you have, it is not necessary that you're going to get the result someone else has. Don't fall into the trap of thinking that my friends are great at English and they can edit the book. No, they cannot. I'm sorry. Your friends are not good editors. They are great readers. They can give you feedback. They can give you their first ideas. They are not editors. Get your book edited for sure before publishing. I got my book edited by two editors, and I still some one of the reviewers for Within just gave a very brutal uh, review, which happens, because there are things that someone can miss.
Right.
So yes, but in spite of that, no one faults the storytelling, which is the most crucial part. So technicalities can always be corrected, but your storytelling needs to be strong, and for that you need an editor who's been doing it a long time. Number three, don't I would say is, don't let reviews get to you. A lot of people think that oh, I've got this bad review, like I just mentioned, and it's really, really, it's going to end my book sales. No, it does not mean that, because not everyone's going to love your book. I'm so sorry to tell you that. Your book is not for everyone. It is for a certain audience. You need to figure out who your audience is, and that is where you're going to go from.
Well, can you tell us, speaking of where you're going to go, I know you're working on something now, right? And did you choose the title?
Yeah. No, I'm still confused, because two people. I think Amaya is so.
Those who are watching, she had it in her stories about getting people's feedback about some potential titles for her next book. So I'm curious.
Yes. So,
Yes.
I'm going to have put another story up. So if whoever's watching this can please vote on that, because Amaya is a part of me and my story of how when I used to go to India, and not anyone ever talks about how even though you're Indian, you go back to India and you feel, hey, what am I? Because no one talks about that. And that's what Amaya's story is about. And I think there is great potential for her to be her own series, which is why I'm toying with the idea. But I love my Sparkle series also. So I'm very confused about what the title is going to be. And that is why I'm so torn about it. So yes, Amaya's story is coming up next. Hopefully by September it should release. I am very excited because it's a story about a wedding, and this girl goes to India and she feels so out of place, and it's a story. It's a story about self-discovery, which is so important, because at the end of the day, each and every one of us wants one thing, is to feel a sense of belonging, and we strive our whole life to get that one feeling. And I think the fact of the matter is, none of us will ever belong, because we're all unique and we're all different in our small little ways, and it's beautiful. And I think we should all enjoy that.
Yes, and you've gotten some great comments about the story. Sounds amazing. It does.
Yeah.
I think that's something that is a very common experience. At the same time, I haven't really seen any, especially kids' books. I think I've read maybe some adult books that talk about it. Some not kids'
Yeah.
books that really Even though
Yeah.
there's so many kids that are growing up like that, I think my kids definitely experience that when they go back to Costa Rica, which is where my husband's from, and they feel so
Well,
place, even though supposedly they're half or they're Costa Rican,
yeah.
that they, they don't feel like they quite belong there either. So,
And this I'm talking about back in 1990. So
mm,
things have not changed much, even in spite of social media and everything. Because I know my kids are going to go back to India, and everyone's going to be like, "Oh, why don't they speak in Hindi?" And that's going to be a huge thing.
yeah.
And my kids are much more Indian in many other ways, and it doesn't have to be just language. While it is beautiful, it is not the all of your heritage. It is part of it, which is amazing. And I'm hoping that this book resonates with a lot of people. If people who are watching this like it, like the idea, and who would love to support the book will be available for pre-order soon. So I'm excited.
Oh, good. Yes. And so just to finish up, thank you so much for joining us and
Thank you.
visit her, the Raising World Children. Like I said, it's a great resource. Well, for
Thank
many
you.
kids, especially multicultural kids, especially or parents who want to have a global mindset raising their kids. And you can find out more, so you can follow when the book is going to be available for pre-order. Thank you so much. It's so good
Thank
talking.
you. Thank you so much. It's always such a pleasure. I know we went over time, but I'm glad we did.
Oh yes, me too. I know. I say that every time. I feel like I could talk to you for a long time.
Oh, that's fine. You have a good day, and wishing everyone healthy and happy days ahead. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.